I didn't say I bought a house. I said I was looking. It was a Sunday dinner, one of those you better show up kinds, not because anyone misses me, but because missing it gives them something new to hold against me. My sister Lauren was already talking over everyone unloading about preschool tuition mold in the kitchen, her latest migraine. Mom kept nodding like each complaint was a medical emergency. Dad was half asleep behind the mashed potatoes. I said it between bites. No announcement. No big moment. I've been thinking about buying a place. Just outside the city. That was all. But the air shifted. Forks paused. Lauren's glass clinked too hard against her plate. Even the kids looked up mid-argument about who stole whose crayon. Mom turned slowly. Buying, just browsing, I said, brushing it off. A cottage, maybe. 2 bedrooms, a bit of garden. Nothing major. Lauren blinked, once, twice, then smiled. 2 bedrooms. She said it like I'd told her I planned to live in a submarine. Dad finally looked up. You sure now's the time? What's wrong with your apartment? I kept my voice steady. Nothing. I just want something of my own. Mom laughed softly, the kind that carries no humor. Well, if you're buying, we should talk. There's a house near Lauren's neighborhood. 5 bedrooms, big yard, great school district. I looked at her. Why would I need 5 bedrooms? The silence was fast and heavy. Lauren answered for her. We just figured, with the kids and everything, it'd make sense. You'd have the space. I didn't respond, because it wasn't new. The way they used my silence as permission, the way Lauren's problems always seemed to land at my doorstep, and how they all just assumed I would bend because I always had. Mom smiled. Martha from church says it'll go fast. We could tour it together next week. Lauren nodded. It even has a finished basement. We'd be out of your way. We, not you. I looked down at my plate. I'd lost my appetite. I wasn't mad. I wasn't shocked. But something cold and final settled in my chest. Not rage, not grief. Just something done. They didn't know it yet, but I did. This was the last Sunday I'd ever sit at that table and be spoken around like furniture. I didn't go home after dinner. I drove. I didn't have a destination, just roads I hadn't seen in a while. Past the city's edges where the houses turned into silos and fences gave way to empty fields. I turned the radio off somewhere around exit 12. Let the hum of the tires fill the car. I wasn't angry. That would have been clean. I was quiet. Not the peaceful kind. The kind you sit in when something's breaking under the surface. The last time I said no to my family, I was 15. Lauren had borrowed my dress torn the hem and handed it back like nothing happened. When I asked her to fix it, she told Mom I was being petty. Mom nodded. She has more on her plate than you do. I remember looking down at that dress, holding the uneven seam in my hands, and realizing I was outvoted in a room of 3. That never really changed. Lauren got things. Time, space, excuses. When she failed, it was someone else's fault. When I succeeded, it was silent, expected. At 22, I landed my first full-time job. I called home on my lunch break. Mom answered. She asked if I'd heard Lauren was expecting. We're all just so happy, she said. I said I got the job. She said, that's great, sweetie. Gotta go, dinner's burning. At 28, I made my final student loan payment. I didn't tell anyone. It didn't seem worth the echo. Last year, when Lauren's water heater burst, they called me. Not because I lived nearby. I didn't. Not because I had a background in plumbing. I don't. But because you're the responsible one. I wired $100 that afternoon. Never got a thank you. Just a text 3 days later. Can you talk to the bank for me? They're being difficult. Being difficult. Not denying the mortgage. Not refusing the 3rd extension. Just inconvenient. That was the word they used when I said I was too busy to come over on Easter. Don't be difficult, Mara. You know how much this family means to your sister. And now, apparently, I was buying her a house. I pulled over near a gas station that had long since closed. The windows were boarded up, but the ice machine out front was still there, sun-bleached and cracked. I sat in my car watching the breeze knock over an old shopping cart. 2 bedrooms. A garden. Somewhere quiet. I wasn't joking when I said it. I wanted mornings that didn't start with a list of emergencies. I wanted coffee on a porch with no one else's shoes by the door. I wanted a life I didn't have to explain or defend. I opened my phone and created a folder. I didn't name it anything sentimental, just a blank space. Inside it, real estate listings, notes on interest rates, broker reviews, articles on septic systems and roof warranties. I wasn't planning an escape. I was building a door. The next day, Mom sent me a link. 5 bedrooms, finished basement, school zone. The subject line just said, "This is the one." I stared at the message. My chest didn't hurt. It didn't rise. It just sank. Lauren texted 10 minutes later. "Did Mom show you the listing? The twins are already fighting over which room they want." "Which room?" "In my house." I put the phone down, turned it face down on the counter, and went back to what I was doing quietly, calmly, like nothing had changed. But something had. I didn't respond to Lauren's text, not right away, not the next day either. It just sat there unread, but not unseen, like a shoe left in the hallway you keep stepping over, knowing exactly who left it and why they expect you to pick it up. By Friday, I had 2 missed calls from Mom. 1 voicemail. "Hi, honey. Just wondering if you got the photos. Martha says that 5-bedroom we liked is having an open house. We could go together. Don't make this difficult." I deleted the voicemail without listening again. That word always sat wrong in my stomach. They'd called me difficult when I asked to stay home from church the week after Lauren's husband walked out. When I didn't want to loan money, when I didn't want to explain myself. It didn't mean I was unreasonable. It meant I wasn't cooperating. That Sunday, I showed up to dinner like I always had. On time. Holding a bottle of wine they wouldn't drink. Wearing a sweater Mom once said made me look less severe. Lauren was already settled in her kids throwing crayons under the table her husband passed out in front of the game. Mom moved through the kitchen like a conductor in chaos. The same noise, the same chairs, the same place they always expected me to fill. I waited until we'd passed the salad, until Dad had mumbled grace, until the room felt full enough to hold a silence. I bought a house. No one moved. The room didn't fall silent. It fell off. Like a stage light had suddenly gone out. Mom turned. "You already did?" I nodded. "Closed last week." Lauren blinked. "You didn't say anything." I didn't feel the need. Dad looked up from his plate, brow drawn. "You didn't run it by anyone." I didn't answer. Just folded my napkin slowly, then set it in my lap. Mom opened her mouth, then closed it again. She tried a smile. "We just wanted to make sure you had something suitable." Lauren leaned forward, voice soft. "It's just..." The girls were excited. I let that hang in the air. Then I said, "They have a home. This one isn't it." No one spoke after that. I didn't need them to. They heard me. No one followed me out that night. I left the dishes half cleared, took my coat from the hook by the door, drove in silence. It wasn't dramatic, just clean. The kind of exit that didn't need slamming because the door had already been closed, just not announced. The next morning, I woke to 3 texts from Mom, 2 from Lauren. All variations of the same thing: "You blindsided us. The kids are confused. You never used to be this cold." Cold. That was the word they always reached for when I stopped playing along. When I moved out at 21 instead of staying to help around the house, I was cold. When I asked to spend Christmas with friends one year, cold. When I didn't cry at Lauren's wedding. Never mind that I paid for her wedding photographer. I muted the group thread. Blocked Lauren for the day. It felt like setting down something heavy I'd carried long enough to forget how tired I was. That evening, Mom showed up at my apartment. She didn't call, just knocked. Knuckles sharp like punctuation. I stood behind the door, heart steady. I didn't open it. She knocked again. "Mara, I just want to talk." Then quieter. "You don't get to shut us out like this." I leaned my head against the wood, took a breath. "I'm not shutting you out," I said through the door. "I'm choosing not to let you in." There was a long pause, then footsteps retreating. 10 minutes later, a text arrived from Lauren's husband's number. A photo of the girls in their bunk beds side by side, holding up handmade signs. "We miss you, Aunt Mara. Come visit us soon." I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumb hovered, then dropped. No reply. Another photo came 2 hours later, the baby's crib now shoved into the corner of Lauren's bedroom. He wakes up every time we move. He needs sleep. Please. The guilt sat on my chest like a hand that wasn't mine. But I didn't answer. That night, I opened my laptop and emailed the real estate agent again. Confirmed closing date. Utility transfer. Key drop-off. I clicked the folder I'd started weeks ago, the one with the blank name, inside blueprints, budget projections, gardening plans, a list of herbs I didn't yet know how to grow. I added a new file, titled it Life Unshared. Then I shut the screen and went to bed. I didn't invite anyone to see the house, not when I picked up the keys, not when I walked through the empty rooms with the echo of my own footsteps, not when I stood in the backyard and realized the silence out there wasn't heavy, just honest. There was no announcement, no social media post, no family text, but they found out anyway. Lauren texted first. Mom said you closed. Why didn't you tell us? I didn't answer. 2 hours later, you said 2 bedrooms. But there's a sunroom too, right? That could work for the baby's crib. Then a third. We've started packing. Just a few boxes. Mostly the kids' things. No question marks. Only expectations dressed up as facts. I stared at the messages. Set the phone down. Let it buzz on the counter until it died. That weekend, I came home from the grocery store to find Mom standing outside my building. Her arms were crossed, her mouth tight. She didn't wave. She didn't need to. You're being unreasonable, she said as I got out of the car. I didn't say anything. They're your family, she continued. You're not even using all that space. I unlocked the trunk, took out my groceries 1 bag at a time. Mara, don't ignore me. You're acting like a stranger. I turned to face her. I'm acting like someone who's finally been given a choice. She flinched, just slightly. They have nowhere to go. They had months. We thought you understood. You never asked. She looked down. Her voice wavered a little too perfectly. Your sister's exhausted. The baby cries all night. The girls keep asking why you don't love them anymore. I stood still, the bag of oranges in my hands suddenly heavier than it should have been. You always said you'd be there for them, she whispered. You always said you were the steady one. I nodded. I was. So why are you doing this? I took a breath. Because for once, I'm building something that doesn't include a back door for everyone else. She didn't reply, just looked past me at the bags I was still holding. At the building I didn't invite her into. I waited, but she didn't ask to come up, and I didn't offer. When I closed the door behind me, it clicked softer than I expected. No slam, no drama, just a line, finally drawn. They didn't stop. When silence didn't work, they tried volume. Not the shouting kind, the spreadable kind. Aunt Cheryl called first. I hadn't spoken to her since 2019 when she forgot my birthday and sent Lauren a fruit basket for hers. Sweetie, your mom's been so worried. This whole house thing. Can't we all just talk it through like family? I didn't answer. Just listened. You've always been the level-headed one, she continued. And you know your sister's been struggling. She needs you. I thanked her for calling and hung up. An hour later, a Facebook tag. Lauren had posted a photo of the girls in front of stacked boxes smiling with chocolate on their faces. The caption read, Some people say family is everything. Some people prove otherwise. Hundreds of likes. Comments filled with prayer emojis and thinly veiled attacks. Some people just lose their way. Kids shouldn't have to pay for adult decisions. We raised our children to care for each other, not close doors. I read them all. Once. Then I deleted the app. The next day, Mom emailed a letter. Not a message, a full-page letter. PDF attached, properly formatted, signed at the bottom. She wrote that she and Dad had hoped we would share this chapter of life together, that they'd dreamed of the whole family growing old nearby, helping each other the way families used to. She reminded me of the mortgage I'd co-signed for them years ago, the hospital bill I'd covered when Dad's insurance fell through, the years I'd stepped up without needing to be asked. Then she asked plainly, Why now? Why are you suddenly choosing distance over duty? I didn't reply. I printed the letter, folded it in half, filed it under legal correspondence. That night, I watered the lavender I'd planted in the window box, made tea, opened the book I'd been meaning to start for 2 years. It was quiet, not lonely, There were no footsteps overhead, no dishes clinking in the sink I didn't leave, no bedtime tantrums behind thin walls, only the steady tick of my own clock. A sound I hadn't heard clearly in years. I didn't owe anyone an explanation, and if they kept trying to rewrite the story that was fine, I was finally the one holding the pen. I changed my number the following Monday. No announcement, no group text, just a quiet 15 minutes at the carrier store and a new SIM card in my phone. I gave the number to my boss, my assistant, and 2 friends. No one else. I updated nothing online, left no forwarding address. When the lease on my apartment ended, I moved everything in one trip using a moving service they'd never heard of, the kind that didn't leave branded boxes behind. The cottage was smaller than my old place, older too. The floors creaked in winter. The pipes moaned when I ran hot water too long. But it was mine. Every squeak belonged to me. I painted the walls myself, built the bookshelves I used to say I never had time for. I started a garden in the back, just herbs at first. Basil, rosemary, mint. Something simple, something slow. No one knew where I was. For the first time in years, I woke without checking my phone. There were no demands, no guilt, no photos of bunk beds or forwarded listings, no weaponized silence, just the sound of birds outside the kitchen window. Sometimes I sat on the porch with my tea and read nothing, thought nothing, let the day rise and fall without rushing to meet it. This wasn't escape. I wasn't hiding. I was claiming space that had always been mine. They had taken so much without asking. So I stopped answering. And then finally, they stopped asking. The email came late on a Thursday night. Subject line: "Can we talk?" It was from Mom's address, but I could hear Dad's voice in the way it was written, tight, formal, carefully weighed like a statement prepared for court. They'd decided it said to sell their house. Retirement wasn't what they hoped. The market was down. The plan had always been for Lauren's family to take over the home, but now, with everything uncertain, they were looking for options. There was a pause in the middle of the message, a breath I could feel even in the text. "We know we've made mistakes, but family takes care of family. Your sister and the kids need stability. Your father and I aren't getting any younger." I read it twice. Not because I didn't understand, because I understood exactly. They weren't asking me to help. They were asking me to return to a role I had never agreed to. I didn't reply that night, or the next. On Sunday morning, I printed the email, folded it in thirds, and slid it into an envelope. Inside, I placed a single card. Not a note, just contact information, a financial advisor, specialist in senior housing transitions, someone who could explain things I no longer would. I mailed it without a return address, and when I dropped the envelope into the box, I didn't feel cruel. I felt done.